everyone, and welcome back. Today we are talking about No Time to Die, the newest James Bond movie and Daniel Craig's final film as Bond. And to be honest, I didn't really care if this movie was going to be good or bad. I was just excited to see a proper action movie in a proper cinema again. And they don't make them like Daniel Craig anymore. He was the best thing in this film. And you know, there's a handful of actors that can keep your attention. And not only are they great actors, but they have star power, they have charisma, they have sex appeal. Where they go, you follow, right? And just off the top of my head, I'm thinking like Will Smith or Tom Cruise, just very few people that they come on screen and you're just hyped. You know, you don't know what's gonna go down, but you're excited. And Daniel Craig gives his best performance as Bond. And it's to the point where you felt like he put everything he had into it, and no one else could keep up with him on screen. And there's a few reasons for that. So I think the movie is worth watching if you're a Bond fan, and it is worth watching for Daniel Craig's performance. As a film, is this a movie that you can, is it a great movie? No, and there's a few reasons for that. So first, we meet James in this kind of transitional period. He's kind of done with this world. He wants to become a family man. And I wish the script kind of focused on the supporting characters more and let James Bond kind of fade into the background a bit, because you get the sense that they don't know where to go from here, right? Like every single scene, Daniel Craig, James Bond, he was the focus of every scene and he stole every scene. And I do appreciate what they did with the supporting characters in terms of making them more equal, you know? And you get the sense this movie had a lot of ideas, and the execution was just kind of poor at times. So I do like his love interest. I do like the new Bond girl. I believe her name is Paloma. Like, she's not in it for much, but the time that she's in it, she's very entertaining. She's very attractive. She's very funny. And James Bond's character is one that just, you know, he's a womanizer. He kind of has this macho ego, and I like that twist on having this girl be very sexy but still be very badass. And then I think the best addition to this cast was Lashana Lynch's character, Nomi, I believe. And she offers an interesting solution to the Bond problem, because I do think James Bond should be a man. However, that's not to say that the characters around him cannot be his equal. Like, Lashana Lynch's character was very badass, and I do like the time that she was on screen. You get the sense that this would be an interesting direction to go in, you know, in terms of modernizing James Bond and having the women around him or the characters around him be equal, like be equally badass, be equally funny, be equally dynamic, be equal, you know, it doesn't have to, everything doesn't have to fall on James, you know. So I think there were a lot of interesting ideas in terms of how the next Bond movie should be sort of framed and organized. And they do kind of hint at these possibilities, because there's a few conversations where they're just like, the 00, it's just a number, it's just a number. And I think that's kind of foreshadowing, like, okay, there are changes that can be made that can enhance the storyline without taking anything away, you know? So I do like these little conversations about the number and, you know, what the number means, right? Because they kind of have this tit for tat where it's like, okay, well, 00 what, right? Like, who's 007? And, you know, it is just a number, you know? And so it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of play with that. But unfortunately, because the script relies so heavily on Daniel Craig's performance, you don't really get a chance to connect with the supporting characters. Like, you get the sense that they're here to support Daniel Craig in his final movie, you know, and for that reason, the watch time felt very long. Now, did the movie need to be this long? No, it really didn't need to be this long. I understood why they made it this long, because it's his final film and they kind of want to wish him farewell. And in having these scenes where he's so dominant, you do have to give him credit, because I don't think this is a part that gets enough credit. Like, you really have to be a great actor to do this, and every scene that he was in, he kind of proved that not anyone can do this part. And I think Daniel Craig's acting as James Bond is underrated. Like, he does a fantastic job, and the watch time helps support that, because you're watching it and you're like, you know, this guy's really awesome. You know, like, I wish the storyline was better, but he does a fantastic job. You know, like, he does a really, like, every single scene he's in, he totally steals. And again, I appreciated the supporting characters, but it would have been nice to give them more screen time, kind of give them more to do, because there were glimpses of greatness in the supporting characters, but they didn't have enough time to really kind of, you know, hook us in that way. And so the main issue I had with the script was the villain. Now, by having Daniel Craig's character, James Bond, by having James Bond as the main character in every scene, you need people that have equal star power. Does that make sense? So Billy Magnuson, Rami Malek's character, like, the idea was interesting, but the execution was very bad. So Rami Malek, he did his best, I feel like, but I do like the idea of this kid trying to get revenge, and he's pissed off at the world, and like, that would have been a very brilliant contrast to Bond if they didn't put so much makeup on him. Like, it felt like Rami Malek was like acting through the makeup. Like, it felt like the outfit was wearing him, and it felt like a villain trying to be a villain, you know? And a lot of that has to do, I think, with the costuming. Like, it was just too much. Like, this thing where the villain has to be deformed or there has to be something wrong with him is not necessary. Like, they should have just cleaned him up and made him this kind of spoiled brat, or kind of like given us a contrast, like a good contrast. And I think that would have been a far more interesting dynamic, because by the time you get to the end of the movie, you don't really care about what happens to Rami Malek's character, because you're like, I don't even know what's going on with this kid anymore. And then Billy Magnuson, you have another sort of bad guy. And again, the idea is good, because he kind of keeps saying over and over again, like, you know, I'm really a fan of yours. Like, just this idea, this Gen Z, like, you know what? You were cool during your time, but, you know, new day, new age, like, you gotta go. So I like that idea of just kind of being like, you know, like, pushing him out. And he had the energy, he had the charisma. Like, he's an interesting actor because he does have energy, like you do. But the problem is there wasn't enough time given to him. Like, he was kind of in the movie sporadically. So you don't really get a chance to really understand his motivations or care. But again, the idea was good. Like, they could have been a great contrast, but because this movie was very confused in terms of, like, okay, are we focusing on giving Daniel Craig his, like, final goodbye and letting him kind of, or are we going to focus on the script and kind of set up for where we go from here? Because as I said, by the end of the movie, you don't get the sense that they know where they're going from here, right? Like, everybody's lost, we're lost. And so all these things combined, by the time you get to the end of the movie, you're kind of ready to say goodbye to Bond, right? You're ready to say goodbye to Daniel Craig. And I felt the ending, I think he gave a fantastic performance. I think he did his best. As the movie, it couldn't keep up with him. You know, the script was very confused. I think they wanted to please everyone, and there wasn't any sort of foresight in terms of, okay, like, now that Bond, like, this Bond is exiting the building, how are we going to set up for future sort of films? Like, what is the storyline going to be with the MI6? Like, you don't get a sense that they know what they're doing. But overall, like, I enjoyed myself, to be honest. Like, I'm criticizing it, but this is a good movie if you're a Bond fan. If you're not, and you kind of watch these movies like they're Fast and the Furious, then I would skip it. You know, because it's very long. It's a very long movie, and I would be lying if I said you didn't feel the watch time. So overall, I think Daniel Craig is very underrated. I think Bond as a character, like, to play him, people, like, it takes a lot to do this, I feel like, and he gave his everything. You felt it at the end. I don't know where you go from here. I think the movie offered some solutions to the problem in terms of, okay, well, who's going to play Bond? And more so, like, how are you going to structure these films moving forward? You know, and again, I think Bond should be a man, but I do think they can kind of structure the film in a different way, where you kind of have everybody as an equal, rather than, you know, this caricature of, you know, like, they can kind of reorganize things. Anyways, you guys let me know what you think, and until next time.